Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk, episode 523, mid February 2025. Tracy, this week we're going to talk about a really cool neighborhood in the Albuquerque area. We've got a whole lot of interesting information about it. It's one of the classic neighborhoods in the Albuquerque area. We're also going to talk about how can people find better deals on mortgage rates right now. And there are a few tricks out there people can do that. This week mortgage rates, there was not a whole lot of relief. We're still, there's no kind of anything in sight that mortgage rates are going to be going down anytime soon. So I wanted to talk about some strategies there, as well as if you're a buyer, how do you make your offer stand out in this competitive market? And some people might think of that, hear me say that and go, wait, this isn't a competitive market.
Yep. And so we are Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker, and you can reach us 505-448-8888. We'd love to hear any thoughts or questions you have and how we can help you. We've got a whole great team that works with us. So Tego, where do you want to jump in first?
Well, actually, this is the question, and this is always the $1,000,000 questions is, as a home buyer, are home prices gonna drop, and should I buy now?
Wow, good question. So I know you're the statomatic, you're the stat guy, and we've all listened to your forecasts. And all of the experts around the whole country have put their estimates out for our market and what they think prices will do this year. And the consensus, there might be one or two outliers, right? But the consensus is home prices are not going down. And throughout the year, they may go up, or by year end, they'll be up higher than last year.
Yeah, and everything nationally I've seen is that home prices are gonna have moderate appreciation this year nationwide. Albuquerque usually tracks with whatever happens with the national average because we don't see big highs, big lows. We kind of just track with whatever the average is, and it just happens to be very similar to what happens in the entire country. And so right now there's no sign of anything that would push home prices lower, only higher.
So the question that brought this up is, should I buy now or should I wait? And really, we always tell people if it's the right time for you to be buying a home, now is a good time to be buying a home. Honestly, Tigo, when I hear people say, well, we're waiting for interest rates to drop, we don't know that they're ever going to be much lower than they are right now. I mean, if you look historically, we're pretty close to historical averages, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go way back in time, but even since, let's say 2008, I mean, rates have been sub 7, you know, 5, 6% for a very, very long time.
When I started
And
in
the
real estate,
I understand we're not talking about the
well,
ancient
that
days. We're
was
talking about in the last, like, 15, 20 years.
okay. Well, I've been in real estate for 22 years.
Okay.
And so 2002, 2002, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5, we were at 7.5% all of my first few years. So,
basically right where we are today.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, okay. I get you. That's fair.
But
I think the takeaway is if you're out there waiting for that 5% mortgage for you to go jump in and buy a home, guess what? As soon as that happens, everybody else is going to want to buy a home and it's just going to drive prices up again.
so the takeaway from that is buy now before there's more competition for those rate drops and refinance.
Well, and I think I just want to reiterate what you said is we're not those realtors that say, "Oh, you got to buy now, buy now, buy now." No, if it's the right time for you, it's the right time for you. It's not like, "Oh, you have to buy or you're silly." It's like, no, it's a timing and life thing too.
You know what's interesting about that, Tico? I think about our market, and we have just come through a very warm period, right? We went through a really cold period, right? It was like 4 degrees one morning. Do
Okay,
you
I didn't
remember
know if you
that?
were talking about the real estate market, hot and cold,
No, I'm
or
talking
the
about
actual weather.
the
Okay,
actual
weather.
weather,
Yeah,
right? This
yeah,
past week we saw like 70s, right?
yeah,
High 60s,
yeah.
low 70s. And that's typically what happens in March. As soon as we start getting warmed up, everybody wants to buy a house. They like people come flocking to us saying, I need to buy a house. It feels like summer's here, right?
Yeah.
Well, this week it felt like summer was here. And we did see more people going, okay, I'm ready to buy a house. But if it's the right time for you, let's get together and help you find that house because interest rates, if they do drop, You can always change to a lower rate, and you already have the house, you're already enjoying it, you've already painted the room the color you want, and you're already enjoying your back patio all summer long.
So let's talk about that. Uh, Mortgage rates, again, if you're not paying attention, mortgage rates right now are somewhere around 7%. They've actually gone up a little bit this week since the inflation numbers came out. They actually bumped up a little bit. There's really no big indication that they might, go down. Some people are projecting 6.5% maybe by the end of the year. But projecting mortgage rates is kind of a
And
futile.
home prices could be up by the end of the year,
Well,
which could
most
offset
likely, yeah, and most likely home prices will be up by the end of the year. The
which
way
could
it's looking,
offset
yeah.
that extra 0.5% in the rate.
But what I wanted to do was there are some strategies or there's some ways that you can get a better mortgage rate. There's a few different things out there that I thought were pretty important. And when we say when you see the I don't know, the rack rate, if you will, for mortgage rates and around 7% for a 30-year fixed rate right now, there are a lot of different opportunities, programs to help people get a better mortgage rate. The first one I want to talk about is the targeted areas in New Mexico. Some people call them opportunity zones. And these are specific parts of town, specific census tracts is what they are, where the New Mexico Housing New Mexico used to be Finance Authority, but they have mortgage programs to help people purchase homes in those specific neighborhoods that can get them right now around 6%. On top of that, if they can qualify for those programs, well, and actually the qualifying is easier. If they get in one of those programs, they get down payment assistance and
Is
possibly, very little out of pocket to get into that home.
I was thinking there are actually no down payment programs also, some of the opportunity zone programs. So, yeah, a great thing. Another one to talk about, and we've talked about it on our show many times over the years, right?
Yeah.
Over 10 years we've been doing this. Is the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority down payment assistance programs where they lock in interest rates for a several month period. Do you know much about where those are at right now?
Well, actually, I talked to Jen Hernandez from CMG Home Loans today,
CMG Financial?
CMG Financial, just to kind of get a check on where things are at. She's one of the lenders here in town. And she's saying on the MFA programs, FHA or VA, those rates are low sixes, 6.25, something like that. If you use an FHA or a VA program and then use the MFA program on top of that. The only caveat to the MFA programs, it does have some income limits. It's
As in you have to make less than a
correct,
certain amount
correct.
based on the size of your household.
Yes, exactly. So they're targeted for, people that are in the, more moderate income brackets to help them get into homes. The other thing out there is what the home builders are doing with
Right.
loans.
I was gonna go there. I
Yeah,
didn't know
will
you had that on
you
your
go there?
list.
No, I do.
A lot of the home builders have some great rates. They've bought like a bulk amount of money for mortgage and they're offering 4.99%. And some of them have graduated steps. So it's like a buy down where the first year it's very low, the second year it's not quite as low. And then the third year and beyond, it might be more like 5.99 or 6%. But some really good rates. If you haven't thought about new construction, there's a lot of reasons to love it, right? Because a lot of times it's a new property. It's got a new heating system, a new cooler, a new roof. Everything's new, all the mechanicals. So typically your cost to upkeep it over the next 10 or 15 years are lower than buying maybe a 30-year-old house where maybe the roof has 5 more years left on it or something. But a lot of people don't think new construction. And, as realtors, we want to make sure you know about all the opportunities out there. And new construction might cost a little bit more, but your monthly cost on it might be a little bit less because of the energy efficiencies and the bonus buy down rate that the lender is offering. So let's talk to you if you think you might want to know more about that.
Well, and I think that kind of sums this whole thing up where we're talking about, okay, if you're a home buyer, you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm trying to figure out a way to get a little bit of mortgage rate so I don't, locked in at this, above 7. But there's a lot of mortgage programs out there. There are a lot of mortgage programs out there. And so
Yep.
it does take a little bit of doing your homework, working with one of our realtors to, help you navigate what's going to be the best thing for you in working with a local lender that can help you with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good
So,
info, Tigo.
okay.
Let's talk about the neighborhood of the week. I'm very excited about
I
this
am
neighborhood.
too. And I
Tell us what it is.
yeah.
Come on, drum roll.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to pull up on the screen here. We can take everybody to it. So if you're on YouTube, which you probably are, I'm going to pull up the screen, the map of Albuquerque, and
I'm going to
this
zoom to the
we're,
southeast.
the extreme southeast of the greater, kind of valley of Albuquerque area, just east of Kirtland Air Force Base, Four Hills Village. Actually, there's Santiago, and then there's Four Hill Village.
Oh, that's Volterra.
I mean, I'm sorry, did I say Santiago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Volterra, also called Wantabo
Have to
Hills.
keep in
I
line
know.
here.
Thank you. I know. I appreciate that. So Four Hills Village is got an interesting story, Tracy. I did a little work.
Yeah,
I
well,
actually
you
did a
are the
little
researcher
research.
of the
I did a little
family.
research, and so Four Hills Village started getting developed in 1957 in Albuquerque.
That's about the
And
year my aunt and uncle moved to New Mexico.
well, and you think about it, that's when the base and Sandia Labs and everything was really booming, I think,
That's why
to a
my
certain.
uncle moved here. He did
Yeah,
solar research on the base.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of been known as a place for military people.
As in a community where they like to own homes and
Yes,
live.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you. It's
Military
perfect.
and people who work on
Yep,
base.
yep.
Yeah.
And so it was developed, in the 50s and 60s, and then in 1959 the golf club opened. It was Four Hills Golf Club.
And that's that green area you see right in the
Yeah,
middle of
yeah.
the
If
Four
you're,
Hills
pull
Village,
it, yeah.
right? If
In
you're
in
watching the map.
so it is one of the few communities that has a country club. Now it's called what do they call it? The Canyon Club at
Four
Four
Hills.
Hills.
Yep.
And that is, like I say,
That's
it's one of the few private golf clubs. So there's Albuquerque Country Club, right?
right.
There's Tanawan.
Yep.
There's this, Four Hills. Is there
Yep.
anything else?
Not that I can think of
I
that's
can't either.
private.
Yeah.
Santa Ana,
Well,
Tamaya,
those are all
those
open.
aren't public. Those
Yeah.
aren't like, yeah.
I mean, my point is this is a true country club community, traditional country club community. So you have um, basically club memberships.
Well, you can buy club memberships.
Right.
By living there, you don't get a membership to anything other than that you live in Four Hills, right?
Correct.
But just to be clear, so
Yeah.
that's the same if you live in Tanawan, you don't get a membership to the club, or if you live near Albuquerque Country Club, you'd have to join. And Tigo, you told me you talked to someone there today.
I did. I just did a little research because I wanted to make sure I get up to speed because I understand Tanawan has a waiting list to join, the
And they
country
have
club
for
there.
many years.
And they have um, with Four Hills, the golf membership does have a waiting list. They weren't really sure how long it was. I couldn't get an exact answer on that. It doesn't sound like it's crazy long. But what they do also have is non-golf memberships for the club.
They have a restaurant.
They have a restaurant, so they have what they call a social membership that you can just use the club in the community. I don't know if that includes. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's just basically using the community in the restaurant and that type of stuff. But then there's also a sports membership. And
Okay.
so the sports membership gets you pool. They've got a fitness center, tennis, wait for it,
Pickleball.
brand new pickleball courts.
Ah, wow. I could see it in your eyes.
Yeah,
Glowing
yeah.
pickleball.
You're ready to move over there, aren't you?
No, but you
Mm.
know what I want to say about that,
Yeah.
Tigo? The way we're making it sound makes it sound like you have to live in Fort Hills to join the club, and you don't.
Yeah.
We know someone who lives not near Fort Hills, and they joined last summer so that their kids could swim in the pool all summer, and they had a great time with their children there.
Yeah. So so it is just as a pretty interesting neighborhood. I mean, the thing that always jumps out at me about that neighborhood, Tracy, is that it's kind of on an island or a peninsula, if you will, all by itself in the again extreme southeast corner of the Albuquerque area. and it's there's one road in, one road out,
Yep.
right? It goes
Yep.
out to Central. There's
And to
open space
Wanchabo.
on like 3 sides of it, and then on the south side of it is the Air Force Base.
Yep. And if you've never seen that fence, it is meant to keep you out.
Yes, it is.
Tego, show them the picture of the Canyon Club.
So the Canyon Club, yeah. Let me pull that. Oh, yeah, I've got it open on another tab here.
So
So
isn't that pretty? You
yeah,
know,
it's
the
beautiful.
Manzano foothills, they did a good job choosing the location for that photo.
Well, there's a reason they call it the Four Hills neighborhood or the Four Hills community, because there's kind of like 4 little mountains around there. So, all right,
Nice.
let's talk about real estate in that area. I've
Yes,
got a few stats, but then I know you do too.
I do.
In the Four Hills area, there's about 2,000 homes.
And detached, or are they different types of homes?
It's a mix, and I think that's the interesting thing about it. You've got um, a
I know
great
there's some
portion of them.
condos there.
Yeah, yeah. The most of them are single family detached homes in all different sizes. About 85% of those 2,000 homes. The other 15%, there's some condos and there's some townhomes. Most of them are townhomes when we talk about the attached.
Right.
Do you remember the difference between a condo and a townhome?
I do.
Okay, you going to tell everybody?
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
A townhome, you get land. Condo,
Right.
you don't.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
that's the easy answer. So some of the different communities in there. So there's Hidden Valley,
Oh, yes,
which
down in the
is
valley.
which is condos,
Right.
and so that's kind of like as you're coming into the neighborhood, you turn
You kind of go
before.
down the Arroyo
Yeah,
and Hidden Valleys
yeah,
down there
yeah, and that's a condo community, and it has a clubhouse pool that's part of that neighborhood.
with its own HOA fees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 different, there might be 3 different townhome communities, so I apologize. There's, Via Serena, which a lot of people are familiar with, and that one does have a clubhouse and a pool as well. There's another one called, Village Gardens, and then there's also a gated community called Executive Estates.
Executive Estates. So do you want to go back to the map,
Yes.
and you've got you can kind of see, by the different house roofs and things, different colors and things. The thing that is interesting is there's that big arroyo there, and and then to the west is the Volterra neighborhood, which is very new, probably the
Yeah.
last 10 to 15 years. And just to be clear, those two neighborhoods do not connect.
Yeah, if you look at it on a map, it looks like
It looks like they
but
do,
they don't.
but
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah. So what do you see in the way of real estate prices
Sure.
and stuff in the and again, this is if you're just tuning in and you're wondering who the heck are these people? It's Tego and Tracy Venturi with Real Broker with the Venturi Group. We've been talking about real estate in Albuquerque for 10 years on here on the podcast and radio. And this week we're talking about Four Hills as our featured neighborhood.
So right now in Four Hills, there's 18 properties on the market, averaging $490,000. They're averaging over 2 months on the market, and they're averaging just around $200 per square foot.
Okay.
But they start, one's 300,000, and the high price is 745 right now, or 725. Sorry, it had a price reduction. Right now, pending sales are 12 homes. They averaged 96 days on market before they went pending. So 3 months, which is, fairly normal.
Yeah, I mean that's a little higher than overall average for the market, but I'm not surprised because it is a higher price point neighborhood than other areas.
So what's interesting about that is when I look at the individual 12 properties that are in pending and days on market, the first one's 20, then 4, then 5, then 267. So skewed that stat a lot. So there's
Yeah.
some that sold the first week and some that took 4 months or 267 days
That's actually a microcosm of our market right now in Albuquerque, by the way.
Totally. And you're
Yeah.
going to get to that, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And closed sales, there were 74 in the past year.
Okay.
They averaged 475,000 because we have a big variety of price points from the townhomes and condos all
Did
the
you
way
say
up.
what's the low price and the high price?
Low price closed was 240,
Okay. And
and
high?
that was a 1,028 square foot.
Okay.
but that was a nice little house. I remember
Yeah.
that house.
Yeah.
And then the high price of sold, 850,000.
Okay.
What's interesting about that one, it was one day on market, listed for 800,000 and it closed at 850.
Ah, okay.
So the
Somebody
houses
really wanted that house.
the houses there are averaging pretty much selling for list price once they've had a price reduction, because I know you have a stat that shows that there were plenty of them that had price
Yeah.
reductions before they got their offer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the quick of it. The average sold price per square foot for the past year was $202. Obviously, there was some lower and some higher. And
Yeah.
a lot of the price per square foot is misleading because a very small house is going to go for more per square foot than a really large
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. When I look at price per square foot, I want as large a data set as I can because sometimes you can get a lot of wonky stuff if you don't do that. So really
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, anything
So that's
else
Four Hills.
on Four Hills? I think that I
You
think that
know,
kind of covers it.
I have someone that I sold a house there to, Tego, and they bike to work on base. I
Ah,
don't know that it's that easy, but I'm seeing all these trails and I'm thinking he said he goes through the arroyo or somewhere and has to get to like the main road in.
the
So,
Tejeras Arroyo, and then go because that
yeah,
big Tejeras Arroyo, if you're looking at the map, is a huge arroyo that comes down from Central and then drains all the way through, and it drains onto the base, I do believe. Yeah, yeah. So it's a
but
big arroyo. They're a big open space. Again, lots of open space, walking trails all around in that area
yeah,
for sure. Okay.
not too far away. I know I just read somebody's What I Love About My Neighborhood in Four
Yeah.
Hills
Yeah.
by accident. I pulled that up today for somebody else as an example, and they were talking about Sam's Club, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, all of those so close over on Eubank. And then they were listing all their favorite restaurants. So it made me hungry.
There you go.
Anyway, there we go. So Tego,
I want Okay,
I
changing subject.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay. How can people make an offer stand out in a competitive market? And why in this market do you think people would want to make a competitive offer? I mean, it's February.
Yeah, and it's interesting is we think about how the market is today, and it feels slow and kind of sluggish, especially compared to 21, 22, right? I mean,
That was frenetic.
yeah, I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of insanity. But what I'm seeing in it talk back to what you said there a minute ago is yes, average days on market right now is like 46 days for homes that sold and closed. So that's average though, right? That's average.
Right.
Average is average. And the thing that's interesting is I just had an idea and I thought, I think there's something going on here. And it was true. And what I found is that about 30% of the homes that have sold in the last just 60 days sold within less than a week. So a third of the homes basically are selling in a week still, which
So
which means there's this group of homes that come on the market that are still getting snatched up quickly.
very quickly, which also means that there's a group of homes that aren't getting sold in 45 days, 46 days, sorry, to be exact. 46
I
days,
appreciate that.
they're much further out, making the 46 days an average because 30% are going under contract within a week. There's quite a few. There's 70% of them are taking more time.
And it was interesting. So I do a little thing where I search on social media and I have this whole AI algorithms thing set up and I ask, okay, what are the questions people are asking about real estate right now? So, and
Why
one of the
why
big
would you wanna
questions right now is, how do I be competitive in writing my offer? And I thought, well, that's interesting that that's a hot topic right now because you don't think of it that way, but it does matter. If it's the right house and and it's the right one for you,
one of
you
those
might have to compete.
one of those 30% that are gonna sell quickly and probably competitive. So, one of the things that's really important to make sure you're competitive, right, is getting with a good local lender and making sure you have your lending in place so you know what price you're comfortable with. You know what your monthly payment might look like. So when you see the right house, you can confidently make a good offer with a letter from a local lender that shows you've already done your work on that and that shows you're a qualified buyer. And I know I've said local lender a few times. It does matter to the listing broker. It matters to the seller that it's somebody local that has a reputation to uphold, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a buyer, you want a lender that has a good reputation in our market for taking care of business and getting it done and not fudging and,
Fudging.
exaggerating on maybe if they qualify or not. Also, the other question is difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualify.
Sure. Pre-qualify. Um, Getting pre-approved is a lot better, right?
Yeah.
That means that you have supplied the underlying documentation to the lender that shows that you do have your bank statements, you have supplied your taxes, you have had your income verified, you have had your employment verified, so that the letter that they write can be much stronger than a just, "You called and put an application in on my website."
So let's think about this. You're the listing broker and the seller, right? And you've got 5 offers, 2 offers, 3 whatever it is. You got multiple offers and you're trying to evaluate, the difference. Obviously price, terms, and let's say everything else is equal and one of the potential buyers has a pre let's just say pre-qualified that they got online and got it printed out and they included it. The other buyer has a pre-approval where they've already talked to a local lender that's known in our market in Albuquerque that everybody knows or at least has a good reputation of taking care of business. That's going to matter.
It's like you're throwing me a softball here. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What listener wouldn't go, "Oh yeah, somebody that's already worked with somebody and already supplied all the underlying documentation obviously gets more weight with an offer." And you don't even have to have offers that are all similar. I've seen many times where a seller has chosen a buyer whose offer is not as competitive based on their lending
You mean
ability,
dollar wise, yeah, because
dollar
they're
wise.
more confident than they'll actually get to closing too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we get a letter from an out of state lender and we don't know the name, we've never heard of them before, and the seller says, "What do you know about these?" I say, "Well, I don't know. I've never heard of this. It's out of area. Don't know them. But this one I know." They tend to give value to that.
Yeah, no, and they should, and it
And
would be wise to.
there are some great out of state lenders, some big national lenders that we've had good success with. I can't say it doesn't happen, but it's not quite as competitive.
Yeah. Well, let's just go through some of the other things a buyer should be thinking about especially if they're in a competitive offer situation. Obviously, price.
Obviously, price matters.
Price matters.
Price matters.
And it's not just price, it's net to the seller also.
Right. So one of the things, obviously, we do quite a bit. We work with buyers a lot, and we've got great negotiation skills, and we know kind of some of the tips to make our offer stand out. One of the things is we might have our seller, our buyer, offer to pay some typical seller fees. So maybe the offer price isn't as high as somebody else, but we're worried about the house appraising, and that could be an issue. So sometimes maybe we say, "Okay, here's your offer price, but we're also going to have the buyer cover a few fees like title fees or something that the seller might typically pay." And then as realtors, we're going to make sure to point that out to the other side and say, if you have higher prices, you might have appraisal issues and you might end up at a price lower than what we're offering. So we might point out that we've thrown in a few things there that actually make the net to the seller
So
equal.
you just went from, strategies for buyers 101 to strategies to buyer to
I know.
103, right? But that's the stuff we think about. That's the
Right.
stuff we deal with
Right.
all the
And I don't know
time.
if that
Yeah.
made sense,
Yeah.
but
No, no, no.
it's
Yeah, no, I
there's
mean,
just things that
obviously.
we know, and we make sure that we communicate those things to the other brokers so that they recognize what we're doing and why that's a benefit to their seller, right?
The other thing is earnest money and what we call TOM fee or time off market fee. And that's money that is there are two different things. So earnest money is just kind of like a good faith deposit that's held by the title company, you know, if just to show that the seller that the buyer is serious and they're putting some money up there, and if they totally back out of the deal, the seller would get that money. Now there's a lot of caveats to that. We won't get into the details, but the other thing we have in New Mexico is called time off market fee. Some people call it option money. In other states, it's called option money. In the commercial real estate business, it's called option money. And basically, it's just a fee to
Not really a fee. It's
it's
a bonus that the buyer is offering to the seller that the seller gets regardless if the deal closes or not. It's saying, here, I will give you $100 or $1,000 to choose me.
or $10,000 we saw
We've
back
seen
in the day.
10,000. Well, we saw 10,000 just a few months ago. And basically, it's over and above. So let's say we got a time off market fee. The buyer and seller transfer that money independently. It doesn't go to a title company. It goes right from the buyer to the seller, and it's theirs.
Basically, the buyer is paying the seller to hold the money off or hold the property off the market
while they do their
where
due
they do their due
diligence.
diligence.
And if they decide the house isn't for them, the seller keeps the money.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that's one. How about just reduce contingencies? You talked about that a little bit, but when we say contingencies, these are things like appraisal, inspections, title search, which you'd always want to do anyway. I'd never waive that.
Well, I'd never waive inspections either, but you could say they're for my own benefit. I'm not going to ask for repairs.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, I mean, so
there
there's
are
a lot of
things.
different things there. And then I mentioned appraisal, and this is kind of along with that is waiving the appraisal or offering an appraisal gap. You want to talk about that?
Here's more level
Yeah, this is
103.
like level 3. Yeah.
Yeah, an appraisal gap is just in your offer saying, I'll pay X over whatever it appraises at. So if, we're offering more than what it's listed at, or we think it's priced on the high end, we say, we'll pay purchase price or 5,000 over whatever it appraises for. So if it appraises a little bit low, we're still willing to pay over what it appraises for.
We saw a lot of that in late 2021, early 22,
Yeah.
where the appraisals couldn't keep up with how fast the market was changing. And the appraisers are looking back, 3 months or something.
6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So they might not have the data to support the value, but the buyer still sees the value and is willing to pay over whatever the appraised value is. So that is one strategy.
Yep. So there's others, I could name several, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're able to pay cash, you're probably going to be in a better negotiating position. Not that a loan is that bad, but there's no guarantee it'll close. Some others, right? I already mentioned offering to pay some of the seller's costs, typical seller's costs. Working with a great local agent with a great reputation goes a long ways. We were at a luncheon this week, Tego.
Yep.
With about 50 top
about 50.
brokers
Yeah.
in the metro area.
Mhm.
And, we walk around the room and we know each other, right? We've all been in the business a long time. We had to qualify to be in that room. So it was really, you have to have sold X number of homes over 600,000 to even qualify and some sort of sales volume. But, we know each other. If they get an offer from me and I get an offer to them, we know each other. We're going to see each other, and they want to work with an agent who knows what they're doing, that they recognize, that they go, oh, she's been in the business 20 some years.
Okay, I'm going to do this.
And we've had great experience in the past.
I think this may not be recognized by many buyers. That really does matter. The reputation of your realtor, your broker that you're working with, and I'm just going to say it, the team too. I think the team reputation matters, and if you're working with somebody that has a team, and we are very proud of that. I'm sorry, I'm going to brag a little bit. That we want to be known on the Venturi Group as a team that other realtors want to work with because we take care of business, we take care of our clients, we work hard for our clients, but yet we're making sure all those little details get taken care of in the back end as well.
And you're right. We hear it a lot from other realtors. They're like, oh, I'm so glad we're working together because your team that does all the transaction work for you is so good. I know it'll all be taken care of.
I know multiple stories, again, back from 21 and the crazy days where our clients won the deal because the other broker knew our reputation, and that was one of the competitive edges that our buyers had.
Okay, moving on.
I know
That's
it's
hard
awful to talk about
So
ourselves.
2 last things,
Yeah.
being fast and responsive.
Yep.
And for somebody who doesn't buy and sell houses every day, being fast can be really hard. Sometimes if you are like Tego and you need to think about things for a while,
Gotta process.
you gotta
You people that need time to process, you can all relate with me. It just takes time.
So in hot markets, if it's, if you spend too much time processing, someone else is going to buy that
Yeah.
house. I've seen this happen so many times where they want to think about it overnight. And I'm like, oh, we need to write the offer right away and get it submitted while you're thinking about it. It's a really hard one. The other one is stay positive and have a backup plan,
Yeah.
right? So there you go.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to leave it this week is, a lot of times people are like, "That's the house, that's the only house for me, and I gotta have it." And
Sometimes it doesn't
it
happen,
just
and
doesn't happen.
honestly, Tigo, most of the time when that happens, when we do find the next house, they're going, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't get that other house. This one is the one I'm supposed to have."
Yeah,
So,
it happens a lot.
thanks
Yeah.
for listening. We appreciate you. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what you think we need to cover and how we can help you.
Yeah, drop a comment if you've got any questions about real estate on YouTube in particular. That'd be the best place to do it. If you got any questions or comments or thoughts about what we're doing and what's going on in the market, if you've got any stat that you want, ask me because then I'll do it. It'll give me something to do. Um,
Like you don't have enough.
yeah, exactly. You can reach us at our team office at 505-448-8888. We're the Venturi Group with Real Broker here in the Albuquerque area.